Mackenzie Johnston with Tri-State Livestock News, bringing you discussions concerning fair cattle markets. Today we have the pleasure of chatting with Steve Stratford of Pratt Livestock. Okay, so to start with, can you just tell me a little bit about your background and your involvement within the cattle industry?
Well, I guess I was born in it. My family dairied and, of course, ran commercial cows. They just sold out in the second phase of the dairy buyout as far as our dairy, so I was relatively young, 12 or whatever. We always ran commercial cows, ran stockers. I came to work at Pratt Livestock for Mike Lewis in 89 or 90, I guess, when I was a freshman in high school. Then fell in love with the marketing of feeder cattle, so on and so forth then. Worked for him on and off with the family farm. Started order buying cattle for local farmers and stuff when I was 15, 16 years old. Traveled many states, bought cattle all over the country. In the last 2 years, I've come back to work for the Winters and help Mike Lewis and Jake here. I sort a lot of the cattle and help them on a weekly basis. I used to attend 2-3 sales a week, and now I just attend Pratt on Thursdays because I'm here Tuesday, Wednesday. But I order buy a lot of cattle, probably 35, 40,000 a year for yards. And then we're second or third biggest Angus breeder in Kansas. So we sell 250, 300 bulls a year. I do have extended tentacles into the further processing and packing and so on and so forth. My aunt, her brother-in-law was CEO of Montford for a long time, Kevin LaFleur. Then he'd have been CEO of Future Beef. He now owns Colorado Premium Beef. And then my brother-in-law worked for Cargill and Swift, and he owns Colorado Premium with Kevin now. My other brother-in-law is the head of shipping at Creekstone. Actually, Kevin LaFleur's dad is the one that created or invented box beef when he was at IBP. I've got a lot of connections to the other side of it too.
What do you think are the major issues standing in the way of fair cattle markets today?
You know, the packer ownership and control, and I guess some of the undisclosed packer ownership is probably one of the major things. I mean, we've had laws on the books. We knew that was a problem 100 years ago, and we've let them get around that with technicalities and just turning a blind eye to it, I guess, in my, even in the coal cow market. I mean, the cow packs own a lot of cows, to aim towards time frames that they know they're going to be short on cows and buy them in a depressed market. The shallow cash trade, I don't think people realize how shallow that is at times. You can have 2 or 3 pens of cattle in Western Kansas sell, and it pretty much is, it sets the bar and the pace for the cash trade for the rest of the week. I mean, it's over. And that also prices all the grids. And so that's a pretty minuscule amount of cattle to price another 575,000 off of. I believe the CME that is traded by the funds and the algorithms and has got to be a broken pricing structure for the cattle industry. There's too many days before expiration, and it can stay too disconnected to the actual cash market, which allows basis traders to throw the rest of us under the bus in a shallow cash trade market. And then, quite honestly, I think the biggest power and the biggest unknown captive supply per se is the grid cattle being committed and turned in before there's any pricing structure on them. That lets them plan their kills and know what they got in house, and it's the upper echelon of the cattle. And we commit those to them week, 10 days in advance. We don't know within $5, $6 a hundred of what they're going to bring the next week. So I think that's turned into a easy non-capital investment for the packers to have a lot of captive supply.
You mentioned negotiated cash trade. Obviously, there's been bills brought forward to implement mandated negotiated cash trade. What are your thoughts on all those bills? Obviously, we started with 3014 and now 5014 has been proposed also. What are your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts on getting those bills passed?
I like the effort of any more cash trade. I think it's going to be very helpful. I think we ought to shoot hard and go at the 5014. I think that makes a major difference. Like I say, I'm not going to discredit any level of help, but I don't think we ought to back off and set our sights lower than that right now. I know there's a lot of people that doesn't think 5014 is attainable, but I guess I don't believe that. And I think we need to try to rally the support from everybody we can to get Senator Grassley and Tester's bill passed.
So anyone that follows you on Facebook knows that you put out videos concerning the cattle industry and issues facing our cattle industry. You recently put out a video concerning our checkoff and how our checkoff dollars aren't essentially helping the producer anymore. In your thoughts, how does the checkoff need to be reformed in order to help the producer in the most possible way?
This is funny to say, but I mean, the packers are selling meat and we're selling cattle. I'm not going to tell you that the checkoff hasn't done an amazing job at highlighting our product, getting back average consumption for beef up. I think it has done a great job. But the lion's share of the retail dollar from that improvement has gone to the 4 major packers, which are real burr under my saddles that half of them are foreign owned. I'd probably be just as pissed if they were all American owned with this sheer dollars, but it just adds insult to injury that we've let foreign entities own that to boot. I think the producer's share of the checkoff is helping the meat packers, expand their share of the retail dollar, but the producers is shrinking while our cost of productions are going up. So I feel that the producers need a separate entity to represent them because we're in competing businesses. I mean, we're trying to get our share of that retail dollar. And it looks to me like we're paying to help them get their share of it.
Do you know very many feeders that have cattle that need to be slaughtered, but they can't move them currently?
Oh, yeah. I mean, and that's problem not just for the feed yard and the fed cattle, but that's starting to be a problem with the big runs we've had, cattle coming off wheat, having room to for anybody to pin those feeder cattle.
Yeah.
And some yards are having a lot more trouble than other. The formulated yards and the yards that have played by the rules and played by the Packers games are getting along a lot better than any yard that's ever tried to take a stand or do something different. So there's some retaliation going on. And they're smart enough. They're buying 1 or 2 pins from even those yards they don't particularly like and to keep the monkey off their back. But we're backing them up fast right now.
Various leaders, senators, even our president has requested that the DOJ investigate meat packer pricing. What do you think is going to come of that investigation if it does happen? Do you think this is going to happen? Do you think we're ever going to hear anything from the investigation supposedly into the Holcomb plant fire?
Well, they say that's still continuing. I forget what senator or who I listened to said that that's still an ongoing process, which I would think that we could be getting that wrapped up. But I suppose give them a pass with COVID and stuff causing them problems also, I'm sure. I think right now with the consumer and COVID and all the attention on our food supply, I believe that we will have an investigation. I guess we'll see how much teeth they go at it with. They're not going to walk in there and find text messages and emails that say, hey, guys, let's screw these guys this week. It is so monopolized and in such tight hands, they're not going to find those things. They don't have to do that. They've got this country and the meat, the fed cattle supply divided up, and there's not going to be a glaring red flag. They're going to have to look at the overall picture and realize that this is nowhere near any kind of true price discovery.
What's your outlook for calves coming this fall?
The calf market depends so much on wheat pasture. And with the wheat price where it's at, if we have good moisture in the fall and there is wheat pasture, that changes the dynamic of what the calf market can be. I have very big concerns of farmers being able to get the amount of cattle they want to run banked, first of all, and how they're going to get financed on that coming through what they're going through right now. It's going to take us a while to work through this backlog of fed cattle. What the feeder market's like in August when all these grass cattle come is going to depend on if we get these plants up and running and can work through this backlog and what the attitudes are then. But I think the calf market could really hurt from this. We're all that way. I mean, we come in awfully gunny if the last turn of cattle made a lot of money. But if you've been through a bloodbath, you're going to be a lot more conservative and a lot more careful.
Yeah.
So the cow-calf producers are probably going to get discounted below what the calves should be worth.
I'm sure you saw President Trump's speech here a few days ago. I can't recall. He made a comment about terminating trade deals where we import cattle into the United States. What are your thoughts on that statement and our imports, essentially?
I'd applaud President Trump. I mean, he came out and was pretty plain spoken about it.
Yeah.
I think he's truly for Americans. He's got a lot on his plate right now. So to think the cattle business pops right up at the top of that list is probably naive. But I guess I was glad to see that he addressed it. And they're obviously thinking about it. What we need is somebody other than NCBA, Farm Bureau, and Sonny Perdue in his ear. And I guess that's what I'm trying to relay on to my customers and people, that's our job right now, is to get that channel of communications open, because I think he'll stand up for the American cattle business. I really do. But we've got to get that message to him.
How are you seeing these tough cattle markets and basically this tough economy that agriculture is facing? How are you seeing it affect your rural area where you're at?
Between COVID and ag being in depression, communities like I live in, 6,500 people, they're really, really going to suffer. And I mean, we're just on the tip of the iceberg. Agriculture is what keeps these places going, from everything from the tire shops to the restaurants, and supporting the schools and supporting 4-H and so on and so forth. And these guys are really feeling the pain here, and there's going to be a lot less discretionary funds to keep these communities going. And vertical integration continues and consolidation continues. There's a population threshold there that once we drop under, you lose a lot of the service and amenities in a town. And like where I live, we're probably on that breaking point. I mean, we were probably 9,000 people 15 years ago. Now we're 6,500. If there's nothing to come back for here, or people have to move to get jobs and are not in ag, we start losing our services here real fast. Just like this sale barn. I mean, the employees, the amount of employees that work here, the fuel, the trucks that haul all these cattle in here, stop and buy in Pratt, Kansas, the food they buy, our consigners that bring the coal cows up and then shop at our grocery stores here. It looks to me like the master plan of all the big guys is for these farmers and ranchers to run calves and yearlings for them and send them direct. And you start taking out these pieces of the economy of the way we market calves and feeders and price discovery. You got two or three bad things that are going to happen. I mean, the farmers and ranchers are going to lose revenue with a price discovery system similar to the fed cattle. And then these communities are going to lose the jobs and the customers coming through their towns. So I don't want to be a depressionist. I try to be an optimist, but you're going to see rural America dry up and blow away if we continue down the path we're going.
So you mentioned vertical integration, and basically everything you just said. You feel if substantial change isn't made within our cattle markets, that's what will happen to this industry. Will essentially become the next hog industry.
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, it looks to me like we're headed down that path. We cannot continue to line up and bid actively and have true price discovery for calves and feeder cattle, and then none when we go to market them. That's not sustainable. We still work and do a good job for the cow-calf guy marketing their calves and the feeder guy, but those guys are bleeding. They can no longer give a premium for good cattle than sell them as a commodity. I mean, it's just not going to work.
Producers will start receiving their government direct payments through this stimulus, this aid package that is being handed out. A lot of folks have referred to this as a Band-Aid for cancer, essentially, the stimulus plan. But we have a lot of organizations that are saying we need more and more money. We just need to continue to hand out money. What is your thoughts on the stimulus plan and the money that is going to be distributed to producers?
It's kind of like I said before. I don't have all the answers to how to fix the beef business. I know that everybody's ideas they're coming up with are not all bad ones, and the good ones probably a combination of a lot of them, or a combination of a lot of small things. And I think we got to be really careful at supporting everybody that's trying to come up with an answer, because I think we'll find the right answer in that. I guess I would liken that the same to the bailout for the cattlemen here. Our cattlemen need it. They shouldn't, but they do. And I don't want to be negative or put down a program that is going to help them. But my personal thoughts are the starting dates are probably too early. Feeder cattle were still really good in January and February. and those people are going to get $139 added to that amount. And I'm not saying they don't need it also, but the level that we were selling those cattle at was really good. People that sold a 750-pound steer in first week of February are going to get 139 added to it and probably end up with 250 a head more than somebody selling an 11 weight feeder today. So I think that probably has to be looked at to be extended. Yet I don't want to look a gift horse in the mouth. I mean, the money has to come from somewhere and the taxpayer's paying it. And I don't want to degrade what they're doing, but I think the next 60, 70 days is going to be really tough. And I think that program as it is today is probably going to miss a lot of these guys that are really, really going to struggle the next 60 days. So I hope they look at extending that. What I really hope they'd look at is to tell the packers that they've got to give us our retail dollar share, and things would change right now and the taxpayer wouldn't have to do that.
Right.
But I don't think that's going to happen this quick. So I guess I hope the producers happen to market the next 75 days that we look at extending those larger amounts.
Do you feel like we're going to price ourselves out of a product? Do you think consumers are going to get to the point where they obviously can't afford beef and this is going to change their tastes going forward?
As short a term as it's been so far, I mean, I don't think I'm going to sit here today and say we've done permanent damage. It's going to really, really, really hurt us. If this extends another 4, 5, 6 weeks and we change eating habits through the summer and the grilling season here, that will be a lot slower to come back than it did leave. So I have concerns there. I mean, there's no doubt they're tapering demand at this point. I mean, there's no possible way. You've got families that are struggling through this COVID and every dollar counts. If you can buy a half a shopping cart full of pork for the same price as 4 pounds of hamburger, then I mean, I'm sure those choices are starting to be made.
If you could sum it up in one sentence, what does the cattle industry need most today?
A level playing field. The producers aren't out here asking for some advantage, this, that, and the other. But these yards, the non-affiliated, non-formula yards, the farmer feeders in Nebraska and Iowa that are still feeding cattle, the yards that aren't big enough that they have their own special grid deals, and the grid needs to be the same for everybody. The grid needs to be negotiated prior to commitment, and nobody should have a different grid than anybody else. The special deals need to leave. Everybody needs to be on the level playing field in order for the feeder and the calf competitive market to remain the same. If we don't have a level playing field on the fed end, life as we know it on the next two levels has got to change. It's not sustainable for these people out there competing.
Before I let you go, do you have any closing statements you'd like to make?
I just applaud everybody that's trying to stand for our business and trying to represent their customers and help. And like I said before, I'd like to think with everybody working at it, we're not a lot of dumb cowboys out here. Some of the people want to pretend we are. I think we'll come up with the right idea, and we just need American pride and realize that the beef industry, the producers out here have done an amazing job the last 20 years, and we need to stand up for our product and get our share of the retail dollar. My whole life, I mean, for 30 years, I've watched nothing but that hardworking people, work their butt off and risk everything. Good people that'll come to running for anybody if there's a problem. Like I say, they're not looking to get wealthy or an advantage. They're just looking to stay in business. And if you look at all the things against us that aren't fair and aren't equitable, it's a complete stacked deck.
Yeah.
And if our legislators can't dig in there and realize that, then the next steps, we got to vote the right people in. I mean, it's plain as day. They can sugarcoat it any way they want, and a step further than that, a national security issue, we need more diverse and more packing. I think it would be awfully obvious that we're real suspect to our food supply being hurt with just 1 or 2 plants going down. And that's not good for the American citizens. And we've got to have legislation that stops letting our food supply get sold to foreign entities.
Yeah.
And farmland and bungee ports on the Mississippi and on down the line. I mean, what is it we're not going to sell to, foreign entities? This is our chance. All eyes are on us. And if we don't make something happen here, then we've got to, a lot of the stuff that's been done was taking advantage of the real people working and not standing up for themselves.
Yeah.
You know, they were busy working, trying to make a living and raise their families, and they weren't as involved as we should have been, myself included.
Mm-hmm.
So all eyes are on it now. Everybody's upset. If we don't rally and stand and have a backbone here and get something done, then we're going to have to accept a little of the fault on ourselves.